Now, without a doubt, by far, one of the fan favorite characters is, of course, Luke Skywalker, portrayed by Mark Hamill in the original trilogy of movies by director and writer George Lucas himself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, the one thing about Luke Skywalker, obviously, that was very much a very controversial scenario, which was with The Last Jedi by writer and director Rian Johnson. We do know that in that movie, a lot of problems occurred because of how Rian Johnson handled the character of Luke, and exactly what Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, allowed Rian Johnson to even do in that particular Star Wars movie. Now, when we go ahead and examine the character of Luke, especially in the originals, we can see this fantastic evolution of the character from Episode 4 all the way up until Episode 6. But then when we see him in Episodes 7, 8, and 9, more so obviously in 8, which is where we see him the most in the sequel trilogy, is where we get to realize that this character really did not work well with a lot of fans out there. Now, actor Mark Hamill obviously has been very vocal and very much, making it clear of how he felt about the character of Luke and how he felt about director Rian Johnson and how he treated the character of Luke in the overall movie of The Last Jedi itself, right? So, when we go ahead and take a look at Mark Hamill, obviously, when you look back at all those interviews that took place back in 2017 and early 2018, those were really his true feelings about the film and what he actually had said, and there was even a key moment in time in which Disney actually forced Mark Hamill to retract his statements. Now, what's really interesting about all of this has all to do with Mark Hamill and his feelings about the Star Wars fans, the overall situation about the Star Wars franchise and where it's at, and of course everything related to The Last Jedi as a film. Now, specifically, of course, now that the Skywalker saga is over, both Bob Iger and Bob Chapek have been developing many plans in order to reunite the Star Wars fans around the world. It's explained that currently George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni are crafting powerful Star Wars stories together that will be unveiled on Disney Plus and in theaters. It's explained that currently Lucasfilm is getting a major change in order to evolve the franchise into something new. However, it's noted that behind the scenes, actor Mark Hamill is very regretful and sorry that the Star Wars fans, based on what happened with The Last Jedi and director Rian Johnson, on how he talked about the film and how that in turn created more negativity within the Star Wars fandom. It's explained that Mark Hamill is very regretful over criticizing The Last Jedi as a movie, as well as director Rian Johnson, as it created more problems within the Star Wars fandom. Mark Hamill behind the scenes is said to also be sorry over the fact that he feels he was the cause of the sequel trilogy not performing as well as it could have actually done if he didn't say anything about director Rian Johnson at that. So once again, we're in a scenario here where Mark Hamill pretty much is very regretful over what he said about The Last Jedi and what he said about director Rian Johnson. You guys may very well be aware that Luke Skywalker as a character did not agree with a lot of Star Wars fans out there. In fact, even casual fans had an issue with how Luke was used in the movie. So, Mark Hamill voicing his opinions about The Last Jedi and Rian Johnson back in 2017, Mark Hamill is obviously very sorry about that. He apologizes for that and is very regretful over it because of one main reason. Because of what it did to the Star Wars fandom and how it actually had a major impact on the sequel trilogy. Now, does that necessarily mean that Mark Hamill is no longer, criticizing The Last Jedi in his mind? I don't believe so. I think that he still does. I think obviously that he still feels that the movie is pretty much an utter disappointment and really is not in tune with Star Wars. Now, on top of this, behind the scenes, it's described that Hamill even had creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy herself and wanted George Lucas to get more limelight with his scenes for the movie that never came to be. Mark Hamill feels as if he was the one responsible for making Star Wars decline in value, given that he is the main character, Luke Skywalker, and the actor who criticized Star Wars Episode 8 back in 2017, even before it released into theaters. Now, it's noted that this was the one main reason as to why Mark Hamill stepped away from the franchise for the most part, and wants little to no involvement in the Star Wars brand moving forward, because he was deep down upset with how things really turned out to be, and what happened with The Last Jedi as a film, and its performance as a movie. Now, Hamill is actually best described as an actor in which his experience on the set of The Rise of Skywalker as depressing, at times seeing of what could have been possible for the character of Luke Skywalker. Once again, guys, this taps into all of the scenes that were deleted by Kathleen Kennedy. You know, we were supposed to get a far different version of the film by J.J. Abrams, George Lucas, and Chris Terrio, and what they were going to do with that movie before Kathleen Kennedy made all these major changes to the film. So I can understand where Mark Hamill's coming from. He's in a real hard situation where he feels he's the one responsible for where the Star Wars fandom is at right now, and he also feels that he's the one responsible for the negativity toward Rian Johnson, where in reality, it's not because of Mark Hamill per se, it's really because of the film's performance. That's all it really is, at the end of the day, right? So, if you think about it, you know, in hindsight, Mark Hamill did whatever he could do with The Last Jedi. He did everything in his power, pretty much you could tell, to warn fans about what was coming our way in Episode 8 for the character of Luke. Now, on a side note here, we do know that Mark Hamill also had issues with The Rise of Skywalker, given that Kathleen Kennedy kept swapping out scenes and putting new ones in, and taking out a lot of his scenes that he worked so very hard on. You can only imagine what an actor like Mark Hamill was thinking at the time of what was happening with not just The Last Jedi, but also The Rise of Skywalker as a film. So, moving on beyond this, Mark Hamill so far is actually said to only have a role of sorts as Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian Season 3 in some way, shape, or form, before it's handed over to actor Sebastian Stan to portray a younger version of Luke for the series and his own TV show as well. Mark Hamill as an actor is said to be moving on to other projects to forget more about Star Wars and his experience with Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi. Hamill, however, does in fact regret making his feelings of the film public, as it also had a negative impact on Episode 9 and the amount of viewings from the audience. Mark Hamill was also able to reveal in a recent interview that he felt that Luke could have actually been experimented more with a whole lot more, in a sense, in Episode 9 under J.J. Abrams, and that there were also many other scenes that he worked on that sadly got cut from the film. Now, Hamill was also able to unveil that Kennedy only wanted Luke to really have one major scene in the film to focus away from Rey, and because it would have focused away from Rey and other characters out there in order to focus more on herself as a character of the sequel trilogy movies and more. Now, this is actually said to be the reason as to why Mark had issues with Kennedy on the set of the film. And at no surprise, guys, like I say, Mark Hamill always had problems with Kathleen Kennedy right from the get-go. When he signed on for the sequel trilogy, he was expected to have a major role in The Force Awakens. When he was reading the script page by page, he later on learned that Luke was only in the film for 30-some seconds, just turning around and pulling his hood back, and boom, that's it. Mark Hamill, pretty much had an issue with that in the beginning, and just kind of figured that maybe he would have a proper role in the next film. Well, he got a bigger role in the next film, and what do you know? He was in the movie, but at the same exact time, it was a disappointing version of the character. So it was pretty much like a catch for Mark Hamill, right? And that's exactly why he had a lot of issues with The Rise of Skywalker, because that could have very well been his redemption as an actor, as Mark, and as, of course, Luke Skywalker as the character, right? You can see, obviously, that Mark Hamill really wanted to do incredible things with the sequel trilogy. There's been multiple occasions where Mark Hamill unveils, what he would have done with Episode 7 and 8, and even especially Episode 9 at that. And I think that obviously Mark Hamill is so passionate to the point where he himself could really have been a writer on board for one of the Star Wars films. I think that's pretty much a given at this point. So that's the one thing to really focus on here. Like I've said before in the past, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.